Hello, my name is Jimmy Vegas and welcome to this, the fifth in a series of video tutorials for Unity 3D. Now firstly I must apologise for the amount of time it's been since the fourth video. I think it's been over 2 months. I can only apologise for the amount of time. But that aside, we're going to get straight back into it and straight back into making the game. So what we'll be doing in this tutorial is we will be looking at tidying up our hierarchy, all these here. We'll be looking at adding a few more of our little tokens here and making sure that when we pick them up they disappear. We'll also be modifying some more of our village and adding maybe torches and a little ramp to a dungeon that we'll build in further tutorials. So to start with, what I'm going to do, which is something I should have done a long time ago, is rename our first person controller to simply player. Now at this point what we'll do is we will start tidying up our hierarchy, and what we'll do, game object and create empty, and what you see down here is it creates game object, which is basically an invisible object within the game, but nothing exists visually. So we'll rename it and we'll call it let's call it village 001 buildings. And in here what we'll be doing is we'll be putting our buildings, which are over here, into a nice neat folder so as it's not cluttered here. So what we'll do is we will see here, as you can see, this first one on the ground is part of our grass. The sun is what makes the light here. Now here are the walls, so what we'll do is we will simply drag and drop into village 1 buildings for everything here. Now as you can see, if you hold control and press on every object, you can select multiple objects, just like you can in your normal Windows interface. You select multiple files. As you can see here, step 1 and step 2 is our little feature we did over here. We'll leave that for now. Wall 4A, 4B we'll take as well, and they will go into our buildings. Point light here is a light we created earlier. Wall, 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 roof, wall, wall. We will take them and put them into buildings folder again. Now, as you can see, we've taken quite a few out. So we will collapse that and we will add another empty game object, and we'll rename this one to village 001 tokens. Now what I'm actually going to do at this point, because of something we're going to do later in this tutorial, is I'm actually going to delete token 2, 3 and 4, and for now I'm just going to take token 1 into this folder and collapse it. Now excuse me, we'll create another empty object and we'll rename this one to village 001, and we'll call this features. And what we'll put in here is our ground, our river and our outside walls. So if we take our river, path 1, path 2, path 3, all the outside walls, ground 2, ground 1, drag and drop into village features and collapse it. And lastly we will create another one and we will call this one village 001 Misc. This will contain all our miscellaneous, which is everything else here. So we've got our player, and then we have a nice tidy hierarchy where we've kept all our objects. So now what we're going to do is we'll go into our tokens area, take our first token, as you can see, it's right there. And what we're going to do now is we are going to make our token disappear as soon as we touch it. So, excuse me. What we'll have to do for this is if we go to our token, and we will need to firstly add component, physics, and we'll add a rigid body. Now, I'll explain entirely what a rigid body does in later tutorials. It's not entirely important for now, but all you need to know is to click this kinematic option. Okay. Next, if we go to our player, we also need to add component, physics, rigid body. Same option again. We also need to add another physics of box collider. Now this box collider essentially means that when we click this is trigger option, it will enable the script to run within this token that we are going to write now, which you will see in action in just a minute. So down here in your assets window, right click, create, new script, JavaScript, and we will call this one token vanish. Double click to open it up, and we will be doing just a little bit of coding now. It's not a lot, it's just a few little lines. Let's wait for MonoDevelop to open. So as usual, if you get rid of everything, it's already pre-set out for you, and we'll be using a function named on trigger enter. Now, if you remember before, we set our box collider as is trigger. This means that this function will run when our trigger object hits the object the script is attached to. So we'll put in here info collider. And open curly bracket. So all this simply does, just one line of code here, destroy game object. So that simply makes it just disappear. It's as simple as that. And then we'll close our curly bracket and save. So now, as you can see, we have our script. We have our token in the hierarchy. Simply drag and drop onto our object as usual. And when we play, we can walk straight into our token and it has disappeared as we've collected it. Now at the moment there is no script anywhere that we've written that will keep track of how many tokens you've picked up, but we'll leave that for another tutorial. So as we deleted all our tokens before, we have just this one now. It is simply a case of duplication. So we'll duplicate 4 more times, so we have 5 coins, and we will rename them back to what we had them before: token 2, token 3, token 4, and this extra one that we've now done as token 5. So what we'll do is we will shift them along a bit. So if we take token 2, we'll put the position x to minus say 2, put it there. Token 3 minus 10, put it over there. Token 4, we'll move that on the Z axis, and we'll put that as -12, which is just in front of our player. And token 5, we'll put that Z axis again at just -3. So we've got that. We'll put that as -2. So that is now inside our building. So when we play, as you can see, we have our tokens. We can pick them up. So we go around here and into our little building. We should see, hopefully, yep, our other token we put inside the building. So now you can create as many of them as you want. It's not really a limit, but essentially I've only created 5 for now because later on we put in a script to keep track of how many we've got on display on screen, our score. But like I say, that's not something we'll do today. Okay, so excuse me. For now, we'll keep that just like that. Let's collapse our hierarchy here. Now, what we're going to do is we will create a sort of like a slope to a dungeon. I would think we'll do that. So what we'll do is, firstly, we will create a new material, and we'll call this outside wall block. We'll see the reason for that in just a second. And what we'll do is we will take the same texture which is on this outside wall onto this new one we've just created. So this one here, drag and drop onto there. So now we will scale this to, let's say, 3 by 3. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this outside wall and duplicate it, and I will rename this outside wall block 01. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it. Let's see, we'll do 18 by, let's say, 8. And the z-axis we will do as we'll do that 8 as well. So we've got kind of a big block, as you can see. That's generally what I'm going for. Now it may not be entirely apparent what's going on right now, but once we start to put this all together, you'll see how it forms. So this outside wall block, that material we created a few minutes ago, drag and drop. The reason being is because when you scale this, it already had the same material attached as the outside wall. So when you tried scaling it for this, it would also scale the outside wall. So what I'm going to do is just change the X scale slightly to maybe 15. Let's move it over here. And if we take a little look around, we can see that it is colliding with the outside wall. But when you look it over here, very slight little difference you can see here. So that won't make too much of a difference. So if we shift this along a bit to, let's say, about there, and drag it so it literally goes through our ground here. And what I'm going to do now is duplicate this one and shift it along to about there, and we'll name this as 02. Now, as you can see, we have a little gap here that is intentional, because what I'm going to do now is ground 2. I'm going to change the scale of it on the z-axis to change it to 50 for now. As you can see, it has gone smaller. So if we take it, zoom out a little bit, shift round, and we can see that it has indeed shrunk. So if we shift it along, like about there maybe, we might need to expand it a little bit. So we'll put that to 53. There we go, that looks about right. Oops. Yeah, that looks fine now. As you can see, that looks pretty decent there, and there's a gap there. So if you go to play and you walk over to it, you will see here there is a gap. Now if you go there, you will fall. You quite simply fall. So what we're going to do is create a little ramp down, and what we'll put under here is like a sort of a dungeon. So what we'll do now is game object, create other, and as usual, cube. Now put this cube, let's scale it. So we'll need the z-axis to be, let's say, about 15. So firstly, let's pull it up so we can actually see what we're dealing with. There we go, that's a bit better. Yes, so we've got 15 on the z-axis. The y-axis, I don't think we need to change that. I think it can stay as 1 for now. And we'll put the x-axis as 2. So is that enough? So if we look here, not entirely sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this stone texture on, but it's gone like that. A little bit messy. So what I'm going to do is create a new material once again, and we'll call this path to dungeon. Chances are it's not going to have much more of a use than this path within the village. So we'll take our stone and we'll apply it to the texture as usual. We'll scale it, let's see, 5 by 5, and we'll drag and drop. Yeah, it's very crooked, isn't it? Okay, so we'll change the scaling on here. Let's see, 1 by 5. Yeah, we'll keep it 1 by 5. And what we'll do now is we'll take it and we will rotate on x-axis, is it? To half. Yep. And as you can see, it's kind of made a bit of a ramp, which is exactly what we want, because then we can take it and we can put it right down here, just like a ramp to some sort of creepy dungeon. So when we play, we go over to our blocks that we've created, go to our little gap in the wall, and there we are, our path. So what we're going to do is we're going to change it ever so slightly. This is the beauty of being able to play it and see bits and bobs and get a feel for what you need to change. So what we need to do is drag it a little bit like that, align it slightly more there, maybe. We also need to change the rotation, so we'll change it to 0.25 maybe. No, I think it needs to be a bit steeper than that, so let's 0.38. Drag it back up again. Now let's have a quick little look. Again, if we go over here, over our river, down to our gap, and onto our path. It's not exactly perfect here, but again, it's something you can iron out when you have time. Just little niggly bits like that. They're not too difficult to work out. Okay, so next, when we play our game, we can see, we look around, it doesn't look like nowhere to go, not much to see. So we need to highlight our little area here. So what we're going to do for that, oh, do you know what? First, we'll actually rename this to, what should we call it? As we call the texture, the material, sorry. Path to dungeon. And we'll put this in the village 001 features and hierarchy. What we'll do now is we'll actually use the Misc area for miscellaneous items, game object, create other, and a little cube will do. So let's pull this into a bit of a view, and let's see, local scale can be 0.25, 0.25, 0.25. So it is literally just a little cube. Let's get a bit of a focus on it. So we can actually see, there we go. Now what I'm going to do here is this material we created for our tokens, I'm actually going to drag and drop onto this. It's not exactly perfect, but for now it will do. And we will rename this to torch light. So I won't put space in there. Torch light. I'm now going to duplicate that, and I'm going to rename as torch base. And if we drag the torch base down like so and extend it to let's say 1 on the y-axis, maybe 0.75. Yes, I think 0.75 looks a bit better. Create in the assets a new material, and we'll call this material torch base, as we've named our object that. And we'll set the colour as sort of a brown dark colour, like a wooden sort of colour. And then I'm simply going to drag and drop onto here. Now I'm going to align that together like so, and I'm going to drag and drop this torch light in the hierarchy into the base to keep them together. So next I'm going to create game object, create other, and a point light. And we will firstly rename this to torch glow. And I'm going to drag and drop that onto torch light. So if we just realign all this slightly so we can see a little bit more what's going on. So I'm going to drag it up to probably there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the colouring a little bit more yellowish. Let's say like that. That'll do the trick. And if we go down here and look at intensity, let's change this to 5 is a bit much, maybe 3, 2. We'll stick with 2 for now. So if we zoom out, we've got what looks like a bit of a torch going on there. So what we're going to do now is something new we haven't done before. We're going to go game objects, create other, and particle system. Now I'm going to keep particle system named as particle system, but I'm going to attach it to torch glow. Now down here you have a lot of options for a particle system. I'm not going to go into too much detail. If we play, it quickly should show us. See, we've not quite aligned it properly with our torch, but that is effectively what happens with a particle system. So if we focus on it and we move it along and put it roughly in same sort of position as what we've got our glowing torch, so we need to move it slightly, move it to there, maybe drag it up. So let's just check across a little bit more. It's a little bit fiddly, you have to bear with me just a second. Like so. Okay, so that'll do there. Okay, so in our settings down here, let's see, what should we need to change? So if we change the type to 1, and if we go to the color module here, enabled, and we'll change the gradient, the maximum, we change it to a sort of a nice dark orange sort of color, and if we change the minimum to, let's say, a yellowy lighter orange color, maybe like so. So if we play that now, we look in our distance, we've got a very sort of crazy torch going. So if we go back up here and change our type to 4 and look over our torch, you'll see that rather than particles going everywhere like they were previously, number 4 keeps them sort of vertical. So we'll keep 4 for now, I think. Maybe change the angle to 1, and the speed, change that to 0.3. And we'll play and have a quick look. As you can see, that looks a little bit better. It's not fantastic, but hey, it's a little bit of fun. So realistically, things like this are things you play around with. You can play with the settings, adjust them, and see what you can come up with. So I'm actually going to rename this as torch base 001, and I'm going to duplicate it. Not letting me duplicate for some reason. It's been a bit of a pain. Let's do that. There we go. So if we rename and call this number 2, drag the whole thing, and then we'll drag this here. Let's change our scene around a little bit, and let's drag our torches up and against the wall. Let's do the same here. Drag our torch against the wall and up. Now, if I back out and look around, it's not going to be perfect. It's not quite perfect, but what is perfect in life? That will do the trick for now, I think. So when we play, you can see over here we have torches highlighting something over here. So we go over and we find our little ramp down into a dungeon, like so. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to, let's see, focus on this block, and I'm going to expand it. Let me see, let's put the y-axis to about 14, and the same with this one, about 14. I'm going to select the two together and drag them downwards. Now the reason for this is when we come to make our little dungeon later on, in a future tutorial, down here you'll see it looks a bit more like a path now because we have walls either side. So what we'll do after that is we will create a roof above our heads here and make sort of a doorway here to lead into our dungeon. So I think we will leave it there for now. This tutorial has gone on a little bit longer than the others. I guess it makes up for the massive delay in them, which again I can only apologise for. I will try and do some tutorials much more frequently than what I have been doing. So in our next tutorial, like I say, we'll be looking at building an underground dungeon. The lighting in there will be different, so it'll give us a chance to experiment a bit more with the lighting and how to play with it. We'll probably experiment a little bit more with the particle system. We'll have a few more assets to use, materials to make, and we might maybe tidy up down here a little bit more than what we have done here, because you will need to try and keep it as tidy as you can, because without keeping your hierarchy tidy, you will have a lot of mess everywhere. Possibly as well, we may look at putting some music into our game. It is very quiet at the moment and there's not a lot to hear, but we'll put some music in. Now, one thing to note with music is don't use copyrighted music. Don't try putting Gangnam Style in there. It's not going to go down so well. For personal use it's fine, but if you're trying to sell the game, it won't be allowed. So for the next tutorial, what I will do is I will make some little sound clips and I'll put them on our website, which you can use, and then we'll go from there. So that's the end of this tutorial. What I would like from you guys is your comments have been great. I've had questions which have been helpful, but what I really would like to see is what you guys are creating. So if you leave maybe links in the comments to where people can download what you've created and see where we go, and just want to have a look at what you guys are creating, I think it's great. So we will leave it there, and I'll see you in the next tutorial, hopefully very soon. Thanks very much for watching.